What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. A lot of stuff going on today, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about today is, well, it's kind of interesting. It has the potential of becoming a very ugly situation here, and that, of course, has to do with the crowdsourced Smach Z, or Smach Z, or Smach Z. No one seems to know how to say it. Even in their own videos, they seem to conflict. I'm going to say Smach Z because I think it sounds better, but we're going to stick with that. Anyway, there's been a lot of issues around this device. If you remember, I actually did a much older video about it where we kind of looked at the internals, their ideas, and we compared it to the Switch because that was kind of on the road to the Switch. We also did one on the GPD Win, which has already come out. I have one, and it works exactly how it's supposed to, where it does more indie games than like lower setting 720p gaming with things like Skyrim. That works fine. But the Smach Z has still not left development, still has not released to really the backers of the project, despite claims of it supposedly having to come out April 2017 when it was supposed to ship, and we're still waiting. But the biggest blow to the Smach Z happened the other day. It was on the 26th of June when ROM.io, who is the company that was creating the chip for this device. Specifically, it was an AMD RX 421, small, low-powered APU. And if you keep in mind with AMD, their APUs tend to be better on the graphics side than Intel's chips. GPD Win uses an Atom processor that is not as good at creating visuals in games as opposed to some of the stuff AMD does. That's why they were going with really a chip that ROM was building for them in like conjunction. But now ROM is pretty much cutting ties with them, and they will treat them now like any other customer, including you and me. And this was posted on ROM's blog directly on their website. Specifically towards the Smach Z, they said this: based on our experience developing making products, we consider that Smach Z has not been able to understand or value the complexity of development and fabrication that this kind of product implies regarding to the technical and economic matters. For these reasons, after several disagreements and long pauses during this project, unconnected to ROM.io, both parts have decided to dissolve cooperation. And this is an issue because now they're going to have a harder time. In fact, ROM says that this chip that they are developing was in no way going to be ready for April. It's going to be ready later on in 2017 at the end of the year when anyone can really buy it, they say, in their words, for your own project. So more than likely, it's going to be up to the Smach Z team to either find a new partner that can pretty much mass produce these chips and give them a better deal rather than have to buy them singular, like in bulk still, but definitely not at like the wholesale level that they were probably getting with their business deal here. And that pretty much means, guys, it's going to cost more money. Not only that, but to kind of start over, while ROM says they're going to give them the documentation that they have been working with them on, and maybe it'll help them when they go to a new developer for chips and really fabrications. The only problem here now is they have to start over, and at this point, it's going to be another delay. This system has been delayed several times. Really, it started like in 2014, I think, when they called it like the Steam Boy, and it's been going like that ever since. They seem to keep taking the same prototype to every trade show, and it's a little concerning now if you have given them your money, because you kind of want this handheld that you've been promised for quite a while, and it's been delayed so many times now. I mean, really, this delay now and this news from ROM, who seems to say that they don't understand over with the Smach Z team how hard it is to create a chip and the money that goes into it, because they have crowdsourced over $600,000 US now. They have it in pounds, but it equates to over $600,000, and they have done other crowdsourcing as well. I know they were on Indiegogo for a while, and then they moved to Kickstarter, and then they moved to Kickstarter again with another one. So they've done crowdsourcing quite a bit for this project, and it seems like, if I had to look at this and take a guess, they are in over their heads for what they were promising. If you remember back with that video I did, I was trying to figure out how they were going to passively cool this chip. There were a lot of things I was looking at that didn't seem to add up for an end user product. I think they bit off a little more than they could chew right now, and they're trying to figure out how to get this thing to market before they go bankrupt, essentially. And it's not going to help now because a lot of people who backed it are trying to get their money back. They're trying to do chargebacks, things like that, and it's not going to be easy because if they don't have the money to give you, then you're just not going to get your money back. In their words, they cannot do refunds because they have invested all of the money in this project, and now they've lost pretty much their core partner for the chip that's going to go in their system. So at this point, if you're a backer, you pretty much have to just hope that something gets figured out here by this team and that it comes out. but it doesn't look good. You can try to do chargebacks. I just don't know if it's going to work. Unfortunately, most of the people who gave them their money are probably going to be out that money because you're probably not going to sue them over a couple $100s. Now, if you're one of the people who put in thousands, you might want to look into that seriously, because that's quite a bit of money to lose. And this really hurts the the authenticity, I guess, of a lot of these Kickstarter projects, because a lot of times, while they do go through, and usually it's a good situation where everyone's happy, there are a lot of times where some of this crowdsourcing, because anyone can do it, like any of us can go do crowdsourcing, there's people who are just they're not qualified to take that kind of money and try to organize this entire scheme to put a product out to the market when they don't have any prior experience other than maybe creating something, but they have no business sense. It's hard to say. I don't know any of the people on the Smach Z team. It seems bad. Really, communication-wise, it's been bad, and they hide all of their updates behind a paywall. There's a lot of contrasting, I guess, business strategies between them and the GPD Win, where the GPD Win has been very open about everything, and they've even released their product, at least the initial one, and they'll probably upgrade it as they go along. The GPD Win 2 may be out before the Smach Z comes out, and it's been tough right now for the backers. I hope they figure this out, because it's a cool-looking device. I'd like to see it come to market, but really, if you're fed up and you're done as being a backer, I really can't blame you. Next up, we have Half-Life 1. Yes, that's right, guys. Half-Life 1 on the PC getting an update from Valve. Now, the update isn't anything massive, but it is fixing a lot of instances where the game would crash depending on what was going on, as found by a lot of people in the community. And this, of course, is leading to tons of people now saying, oh, cool, maybe Half-Life 3 is coming. And I don't know how people are linking that to Half-Life 3. This seems to just be a bunch of bugs and just fixes that they decided to do to a 19-year-old game. So there you go. You know what? If you want to download and play it, at least it's more stable now. I just don't think Valve is really in the mood to make Half-Life 3. They just don't need to. They own Steam, where piles of cash are generated every single day. Why would they put money into development of a game that may end up disappointing? I mean, at this point, Half-Life 3 will never live up to the hype, so in their minds, they're like, well, why make it? And we talked about Castlevania the other day, the series that released on Netflix, and a lot of people like it. It's a good series to a lot of people. It's definitely better than most video game adaptations, and it looks like now the director and creator of it has their eyes set on a certain Nintendo IP that they would like to get their hands on and then kind of turn into a similar series. And this was in an interview with Nintendo Life. Adi Shankar said this about what they would like to kind of look at next. Dark Metroid in the same anime style. And this is interesting because Nintendo has said that they want to make animes out of their IPs. You know, some kind of anime for Metroid would be really cool. And if you want to go kind of the dark route, maybe not super dark, but you want to use someone like Adi Shankar to create I guess a more gritty style Metroid, that's probably not a bad idea. Now, of course, Nintendo probably doesn't want to go like super mature rated with it or anything, because it's still their intellectual property that they're going to still try to sell, and more than likely a teen rating when Metroid Prime 4 comes out. So they may not want to block it behind something like an R rating. But it's interesting to note that Adi Shankar has his eye on the possibility of making Metroid into an anime series, much like Castlevania. Could be interesting. I'm curious what you guys think, though. Do you think that would be a good idea for Nintendo to release something like that? And maybe, I don't know where they'd release it. Would they release it on Netflix, or would they just put it out on like direct to download or a Blu-ray or something? Next up, Splatoon 2 has now released from its embargo for single player. You saw our preview yesterday about this, where we kind of Evan went over all of the different Splatoon 2 single player details and how we felt about the game so far. Digital Foundry did what they do best, and they took a look at resolution and frame rate. And wouldn't you know it, Splatoon 2 runs at a locked 60 frames. Now, running at 60 frames per second all the time does come at a cost, as the resolution is dynamic and will move down to something like 864p all the way up to 1080p depending on what's going on screen. And then even in handheld mode, it will drop below 720p to accommodate that 60 frames. Again, depending on what is happening on screen with all the crazy action. We don't know anything about the multiplayer because the servers still aren't up even for reviewers, but at least single player mode, we can see this. Now, when you're walking around the lobby, I did notice that the frame rate drops to 30, but when you are playing, it was so smooth. It's like silky smooth. And now this is what's really interesting, because they noted that Splatoon 2 did get an upgrade from the original demo that we played at the events. When I played at the events, I couldn't tell anyway, because it was in a dark room. We were playing through handheld mode, but according to them, the frame rate was pretty good, but the resolution was lower, and now it's become higher. So we look at games like Mario Odyssey that's locked at 720p when they did the demo at E3, and we're trying to think, well, maybe at this point, they come out with it and the resolution is higher because they have time to work on it. I think Splatoon 2 is pretty much locked at where it is now. Maybe a future update will fix some things, but really, I'm more on the boat of if the frame rate's good, I don't care as much if the resolution drops, you know, a couple hundred points or something. It's down to 864p. I didn't notice it when I'm playing it, so I don't know why anyone else would, unless I guess you got your magnifying glass on the screen. I don't know how you're playing that way, though. But now we have Mario Kart, ARMS, Mario Odyssey, and Splatoon 2, all from Nintendo, all running at 60 frames per second. So it seems like Nintendo may really put the emphasis on frame rate with the Switch with their first-party games, and I like that method a lot. I have no problem, seriously, dropping below 1080p if I am guaranteed 60 frames per second across the board. That is awesome. I think a lot of people like frame rate over resolution, specifically like you either have to choose between 60 frames or 4K. I think a lot of people are going to choose something like 1080 60 over 4K 30. That's me personally. Now, there are certain games that it won't matter, like an RPG. You can get away with 30 frames fine. But if you're doing like a shooter, you might prefer the 60 frame smoothness as opposed to what is not a choppy, but a choppier 30 frames per second. Now, real quick, let me hit you with some retro news. I saw this on eBay. It popped up, and it was Stadium events. And it was a sealed copy of Stadium events, something you don't see pop up every day on eBay, like at all. And it sold for over $40,000, which is insane. I know that game is rare, obviously. There aren't that many out there, and to see one completely sealed up is impressive. I really hope it's actually sealed and not resealed, and they're reselling it to this person as a resealed Stadium events. And I hope it's not the PAL version. But, I mean, it says it's not. Again, it's eBay. I don't know. If I'm spending that kind of money, I want to make sure myself, like, I would actually probably drive there if I'm not super far away and just double check it before I hand them that kind of money. But it's interesting to note that people are buying these kind of games, right? But they don't open them or play them. And it's almost like a perception of value. I don't think a lot of people would spend that money at all, but maybe it's just somebody who really likes collecting and they're looking to finish their collection with a sealed Stadium events, which is pretty much the holy grail of Nintendo collecting. Our last bit of news, well, let's talk about Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, because it finally has a release date on the Switch. That's September 22nd. Now, I know a lot of people have probably bought this game already, myself included, but it's going to be portable, and I think a lot of people want to see how it does on the Switch when compared to other systems. I've talked about it before. That's going to happen a lot. Third-party games that come out on the Switch that are also on the PS4 and the Xbox One are going to get that side-by-side comparison just to see. But again, the Switch is portable, so it has a serious advantage over its competition. The fact that you can walk away from the TV and still play it, I think that's pretty intriguing for a lot of people. That's September 22nd, Xenoverse 2. And that's it for Newswave today, guys. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know what you think about anything we talked about today, whether it is the Smach Z debacle. It's not looking good. They seem to want to try to release these items to people, backers first, which I would hope so. But backers first, they're going to release them, in their words, early January is where they want to get this thing out to. That would put it in 2018. It was impressive in 2014 when we heard about it. It was still impressive in 2015, even 2016. I don't know how impressive it's going to be if we fall into late 2018 with this system and the GPD Win 2 maybe comes out and is a better match to it than the first GPD Win. I don't know. I mean, the tech sounded cool then. It's kind of fallen off now. Also, if you're a backer, let me know what your feelings are, because I have a feeling you're kind of frustrated. That's it for now, guys. I'll see you next time.